To address these issues, we discuss greater transparency and accountability in the supplement industry, including more stringent regulations and, of course, better education for consumers. Dr. Rajan M, President, Malaysian Dietary Supplement Association, Madsa, joins me now in the studios to further the discussion. Dr. Rajan, thank you so much for making time for us. How are you today?
Very good. Thank you.
Wonderful. So let's get the conversation kick-started, Dr. Rajan. Is it too little, too late when it comes to hopefully effective supplement regulation for us? Now we're talking about the entire supply chain, from marketing all the way to the direct consumer, and looking at the proliferation of supplements and particularly the impact of social media on marketing channels. What are your thoughts as Madsa's president?
No, it's not too late and it's not too little. We've done a lot, but we can do a lot more. I think the consumer out there is looking for options. The consumer is also becoming more sophisticated.
Absolutely.
So if we don't match up to that, then there'll be a gap. I think that the industry has done a lot and will do a lot more. Globally, the industry has done a lot. Locally, there's a lot more to be done. But I think it's completely doable.
All right. So when we talk about it being doable, let's look at the fact that there's also so much more of an interest in the supplement industry, particularly due to the pandemic. And what has that shown us about consumers' wants, as well as how that is influencing the proliferation of supplements? Some of them, of course, unregulated, being actually openly sold in the market.
Okay. Let me first address the one about not registered and whatever, right? I think that's important. Or sold online, right? So you don't know, right?
True.
Well, I would say, unfortunately, in many parts of this country, you can buy still supplements in pasar malams, where there is no proper regulation management. There is now a growth of the online business where the customer may be getting a brand that there's nobody behind it, nobody guaranteeing it, nobody giving them the support. It may be a product that's also expired or brought into the country in an improper way, right? So that's one, right? But the bigger thing is, what can we do as an industry? Now, consumers are becoming very sophisticated, as you said rightly so. In the pandemic, we saw that, but even before that, everywhere in the world, including Malaysia, year on year, the supplement market is growing. That's interesting because the drug market, which is the corollary to supplement market, is fully reimbursed by insurance and government and so on. But when it comes to supplement, you're electing to buy it on your own, out of your own pocket, and with no prompt. That's very counterintuitive. Why would I spend on this when I can get that free, right? So the consumers are making decisions. And the decisions of consumers are many levels. One is obviously, it's working for me, right? It's showing benefit. The other one is they are hearing from other educated consumers, it's working, right? But I think the education levels are also, they're able to get more information online, offline, media, and so on. But what's interesting is at the very same time, consumers are being told, oh, you don't need supplements, you know, just 4 drugs will do, just 4 meals a day will do, square meals will do. Many doctors poo-poo the idea of supplements, and yet, year on year, this is growing. Now, that tells us very clearly, right, that this is an industry that's growing. And whenever an industry grows, it attracts attention from everybody, from regulators, from politicians, from media, and we welcome that. I think that at a regulation level, right, there will always be a tension between the regulator and the industry, and that's normal, natural. What we need now is dialogue, so we can see how the other party sees this party, so empathy, right?
Exactly. So speaking about empathy and then also expanding multiple stakeholders in the industry, let's talk about something interesting that you touched upon in our conversation earlier, Dr. Rajan, which is the potential of the Malaysian rainforest, one of the oldest in the world for actually natural herbal supplements, which could also be another huge growth sector for the supplement industry.
Yeah. I mean, again, we're back to the whole idea of regulation, research, development, and all
Absolutely.
that. But Malaysia has got some very, very unique advantages geographically, historically, globally. We are the oldest rainforest in the world, at least Borneo is. We're the oldest rainforest in the world. That's Guinness Book of Records. We have an amazing confluence of the 3 major cultures of Asia, the Malay culture, the Chinese culture, and the Indian culture, and they've cooked here together for 500 years.
That's right. We've got also 15,000 species in the rainforest, 3,000 of those medicinal, right?
Yes, and that's what we know. There's some we don't even know, right? And then there is probiotics, which are what we find in the soil. That's again unique by itself. I mean, there's some very interesting research being done on probiotics found in the soil that's cancer protecting, for example. So there's a lot in the forest, there's a lot in the environment, and if we find the right kind of leadership, then we can be a global player. You know, just go to America or Canada or Europe and say this is from the oldest rainforest in the world, and you've already won the battle. Right? What we need now is the science behind it, is the compliance and regulation behind it. We can be a serious player.
That's right. Moving along from there, Dr. Rajan, what are the loopholes through which illegal supplements, which we briefly referenced to, become available on the market themselves? What is the steps and the process itself, and how do we actually look at regulatory frameworks which can help to reduce their presence?
I think for a start, consumers are the ultimate regulators.
Sure.
If you choose to buy a cheap supplement online or off the shelf or then you are already putting yourself in a difficult category, right? But if you go into a pharmacy where you know the pharmacist will never stock an unregistered product, he will never stock an illegally imported product. It's bought on the shelf, right? It's got a proper receipt. You've got a protection there. So then the consumer
a guarantee.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, a guarantee. A guarantee of quality, a guarantee of support, a guarantee of professional backing, right? And you can always go to the pharmacist and say, look, can you help me with this? Would this interact with that?
Correct. And they're always on hand, of course. In fact, almost shadowing you as you go through, asking, do you need assistance?
So if you buy something in an unregulated source or online or whatever, then you don't have the knowledge or the potential to ask the pharmacist, look, I'm on this drug. Can this supplement work better or will it interact? Right?
Sure.
So the customer becomes the ultimate regulator by asking the right questions, asking the right people, and buying the product in the right sources, right? Now, leave that to that, then we have obviously got the government itself that plays a role in this. The Ministry of Health of Malaysia, the National Pharmaceutical Research Registration Organization, NPRA. These are what we used to call the Drug Control Authority. They are the overall regulators, right? So in between the consumer and the regulator is the industry.
That's right.
And the industry players. And we, Madsa, wants to take a bigger role in working with the regulators, working with the industry players to make sure that consumers are getting properly regulated, authorized products.
Right. And speaking of the fact that you just mentioned cheap/affordable supplements versus those which may be a little higher on the price range, let's speak about the discriminatory taxation policy there is on supplements compared to medicines, drugs. And I think anyone who does consume these regularly as part of their regime are quite aware of the pretty significant price differences between brands. Tell us a little bit more about this, Dr. Rajan.
Yeah. So one is the idea of a tax. So our supplements or the raw materials now invite a tax, and that is a consumer burden, unlike drugs that don't have a tax. So we would like to start the dialogue with the government to see how this taxation can be, because if we become expensive because our taxes are high, then imported products that you take online become cheaper and cheaper, becoming more attractive to consumers to do that, right? So that's one. We also want to talk to the government about, every year when you do your income tax returns, you get tax rebates on buying medical insurance and buying computers. We also want to talk to the government about supplements. If you get supplements, you get a tax rebate. So it helps the consumer reduce their burden, the tax burden, but then will also force the consumer to look at products bought, properly approved, properly authorized, and it'll drive that narrative that follow the regulations, you are protected not just health-wise, but also financially.
Yes, absolutely. Now, to round out our conversation, Dr. Rajan, if we could now focus perhaps on the importance of emphasizing holistic nutrition via perhaps even supplements, especially for children. The recent NHMS National Health and Morbidity Survey shows that children under 5, prevalence of stunting increased actually from 21.8% in 2019, and this was just 17.7% in 2015. Right. Now, the latest ones will probably show us much accelerated.
Post-COVID or during COVID, yeah.
Correct.
No, I think that, every generation must prepare for its next generation.
Sure.
Right? And while a child will never go to bed hungry, it's going to cry and force you to at least give it a stale piece of bread before it goes to sleep. But the same child will sleep soundly when it's lacking micronutrients. Right? And it's the micronutrients that help the child's brain to grow, that
during the critical 0 to 6 period, right?
Even till the age of 12, we know this, that help the bone growth, that help the eye growth, that help the brain growth. And we have an issue at that level.
Indeed.
And it's more so in the B40 segments, right, where they're not getting that. And we want to address this as well as an industry, because I think the government wants, obviously, to help the B40s, and we do want to invest in the future generation, right?
I'm just thinking perhaps supplement Rahma, we've got menu Rahma.
Yeah.
What about that instead?
Yeah. So yeah, that's the kind of thing that the discussions we are having now.
Good.
To get this out, because if we do not, the child can go to bed, they will never go to bed hungry. We know this. They will cry until you give them at least a piece of stale bread or roti canai. But they will go to bed without the proper micro supplementations, which mean that their sleep is not complete. They're not really growing the way they should.
Sleep cycle interrupted, etc. Right?
And brain growth interrupted, eye growth interrupted, stunting, wasting, as you just mentioned. So it's our generation's job to invest in the future generation, right? Look at the Japanese and Koreans, right? While we were growing up, they were relatively short people. Today, they're taller, they're healthier, they're winning all the gold medals in the Olympics, and they made those investments long time ago, right? They didn't go and buy it off the shelf yesterday, and we need to do the same as a country, as a nation.
Thank you so very much, Dr. Rajan. I just wish we had a little more time to dig deeper, but I think this has been a perfect nutshell of the importance of supplement industry futures in Malaysia. So that, of course, was Dr. Rajan from Madsa, and this has been Niaga Spotlight with me, Tamina Kazju. We'll see you next Friday with more business analysis and insights. Here's to a productive week ahead.